Welcome to another episode of Microsoft Knowledge Nuggets on M365 FM. I'm Mirko Peters. Today's topic is something every business relies on but rarely thinks about: email security. Here's a number that should stop you. 90% of all cyber attacks on businesses start in one place: the inbox. Not a hacked server, not a compromised app, just a single email. And if you're like most people, you assume your email is protected. You're right, it is. But you probably don't know how or where that protection stops. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what Exchange Online Protection does, where its limits are, and whether you need something more. We'll cover 3 filtering layers, a safety net that catches what slips through, and the upgrade decision that could save your business. Here's the simplest definition. What exactly is Exchange Online Protection? Exchange Online Protection, or EOP, is the built-in email security layer that comes with every Microsoft 365 plan. No extra cost, no setup required for basic protection, it's just there. Think of it like the front gate security guard at your office building. That guard checks everyone who walks in, looks at their badge, verifies they belong. But once they're through the door, the guard doesn't follow them around, and that's exactly what EOP does. It has 3 core jobs: stop spam, block malware, and catch basic phishing. Everything runs in the cloud, so you don't have to maintain servers or update software. Here's the key point. EOP is always on, even if you never touch a single setting. You could buy a Microsoft 365 license, never open the admin center, and EOP would still be filtering your email. But it's not a full security suite. It's the foundation, the bare minimum. And since you're already paying for it as a beginner, you might as well understand what you've got. Layer 1, anti-spam. Let's start with the first layer, the one that handles the most noise. Spam. Spam is volume. About 99% of unwanted email is just bulk junk. Newsletters you never signed up for. Promotional offers, random garbage. But spam isn't just annoying, it's also the cover that attackers hide behind. So how does EOP filter it? 3 ways. First, connection filtering. EOP checks the IP address of the sending server against known reputation lists. If that IP has a history of sending spam, the message gets blocked before it even reaches your mailbox. Second, content filtering. EOP scans the actual words and patterns in the email. Subject lines, body text, embedded links. It looks for signs of spam. Third, bulk complaint feedback loops. If enough people mark a sender as spam, EOP learns and starts blocking that sender for everyone. The goal is simple: keep spam out of your inbox without accidentally deleting legitimate mail. So what happens to flagged spam? It goes to quarantine or to the user's junk folder. Admins can customize which one. For example, say a sender from a known spam list tries to send you an offer. EOP sees the IP, recognizes it, and blocks the message before you ever see it. Most users never notice this happening. It's completely invisible when it works, but admins have controls. You can adjust how aggressive the filter is, standard or strict. You can set allowed and blocked sender lists. You can configure quarantine notifications so users know when something was held back. Why does this matter? Because spam is the bulk of all email attacks. Filtering it out reduces the noise for the other layers. That means the anti-malware and anti-phishing systems can focus on the real threats instead of drowning in junk. Layer 2, anti-malware. Spam is mostly annoying. Malware is dangerous. So let's talk about the second layer, anti-malware. This is what catches viruses, ransomware, and trojans hidden inside attachments. Here's how it works. When an email arrives with an attachment, EOP inspects that file in real time against a database of known malware signatures. It also uses heuristics, behavioral patterns that suggest something is off. So what exactly does it block? By default, EOP blocks executable files like X and ASCII. It blocks scripts like VBs and .js. It blocks archives that contain suspicious code, a whole list of common dangerous file types. But here's the critical limitation. EOP does not sandbox unknown files. It can only catch threats that have already been identified. If a brand new piece of malware lands in your inbox that nobody has ever seen before, EOP has no signature for it, so that message gets delivered. Catching zero-day malware requires Defender for Office 365, which detonates those unknown files in an isolated sandbox to see what they actually do. Let's make this concrete. Say someone sends you a PDF with an embedded macro that's known to be malicious. EOP recognizes that signature, quarantines the message, and you never see it. The malware never touches your computer. That's the good news. What happens to detected malware? The message gets quarantined or rejected entirely. It never reaches your inbox. There's a backup system called zero-hour auto-purge, ZAP for short. If a malicious attachment somehow gets delivered and then Microsoft's threat intelligence updates, ZAP can retroactively remove that message from your inbox. We'll cover ZAP in detail later. But for now, here's why this matters to you. Most ransomware starts as a malware-laden email. Someone opens an attachment and within minutes, their entire company is locked out of its files. EOP catches the known stuff, which is still the vast majority of attacks. It won't stop everything, but it stops enough to make a real difference. Layer 3, anti-phishing. So now we get to the layer that fools people the most. Phishing. It's different from spam and malware. It's not about code. It's about trickery. Fake login pages that look identical to the real thing. urgent requests that demand immediate action. Sender addresses that are slightly misspelled, Microsoft.com instead of Microsoft.com. This is social engineering, not a technical exploit. So what does EOP actually do against phishing? Three main things. First, spoof intelligence. EOP checks whether the sender's address has been forged. If an email claims to be from your bank, but the underlying authentication fails, EOP flags it. Second, it verifies email authentication protocols. That's SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. These are technical records in DNS that confirm the sender is allowed to use a domain. Third, it uses machine learning models that look at sender behavior patterns to spot anything suspicious. But here's what EOP does not do. It does not detect impersonation of specific people. So if an email looks like it's from your CEO asking for gift cards, EOP probably won't see that as dangerous. It can't learn who your executives are and protect them directly. That requires Defender for Office 365. It also doesn't scan links at click time. If a link in an email looks clean when it arrives but turns malicious 2 hours later, EOP won't catch it. Let's use an example. You get an email that appears to be from your boss. The display name says Sarah Johnson. The message says she needs you to buy gift cards for a client, but the actual sender address is sarah.jacehansen@gmail.com, a 0 instead of an O. EOP might flag this if the domain looks suspicious or if authentication fails, but it won't recognize that Sarah Johnson is your actual boss, and this is a targeted impersonation attack. That's a big gap, and this is where DMARC comes in. DMARC is a DNS record that tells receiving mail servers what to do with emails that fail authentication. If you publish a strict DMARC policy for your domain, it becomes much harder for attackers to spoof your company's email addresses. EOP uses DMARC information when it's available, but it can't enforce it for you. You have to set it up yourself. That's why user awareness matters. Even with EOP, some phishing emails will get through, especially the targeted ones. EOP can add safety tips to emails like a warning that says, this sender is not verified, but those have to be enabled. So here's the takeaway. Classic spam filtering can't stop social engineering. EOP's anti-phishing blocks a lot of basic phishing, but it has clear limits, and those limits are exactly where attackers focus their efforts. The retroactive safety net, 0-hour auto purge. So what happens when a bad email slips through those 3 layers? It will. No filter is perfect. That's where 0-hour auto purge comes in. ZAP for short. This is EOP's safety net. Here's how it works. ZAP continuously scans messages that were already delivered to inboxes. If Microsoft's threat intelligence updates and a new verdict comes in, say a message that looked clean 2 hours ago is now flagged as malware, ZAP automatically removes it. No one has to push a button. It just happens. The window is 48 hours from delivery. That might not sound like a lot, but it covers most delayed detections. Attackers often use tricks where a file or link is benign when it arrives, then turns malicious hours later. ZAP catches that shift. It covers spam, phishing, high-confidence phishing, and malware. Each verdict triggers a different action based on your existing policies, usually moving the message to quarantine or the junk folder. Now here's something new. As of early 2026, ZAP expanded to 2 additional places. First, Microsoft Teams chat messages. If a malicious link or file gets shared in a Teams chat, ZAP can retroactively remove it for everyone in that conversation. Second, the deleted items folder. This one matters a lot. Previously, if a user deleted a malicious email themselves, ZAP wouldn't touch it. It was already gone. But here's the problem. Deleted items can be restored. So now ZAP scans the deleted items folder too. If it finds something dangerous, it quarantines it there. That means even emails users threw away thinking they were harmless get cleaned up. And here's the best part. No admin action needed. ZAP is enabled by default for every single Exchange Online mailbox. You didn't turn it on. It was just there from day one. Let me give you a concrete example. Say a malicious PDF gets through your initial filters because it's a brand new variant. No signature exists for it yet, so it lands in your inbox. 2 hours later, Microsoft's threat intelligence team updates their signatures. They've now identified that file as dangerous. ZAP scans your inbox, finds that email, and moves it to quarantine. Silently. You never knew it was there. You never clicked it. And by the time you check your email later, it's already gone. What does the user see? The email disappears from their inbox. They might get a quarantine notification depending on how their admin set things up. But most of the time, it's invisible. The threat just vanishes. Why does this matter? Because attack detection isn't instant. There's always a gap between when a threat arrives and when it gets identified. ZAP covers that gap. It's the safety net underneath everything else. And it works for every single EOP customer, whether you're a solo freelancer or a 1,000-person company. The limits of EOP. So ZAP is great at catching what slips through, but it has limits, and so does EOP overall. Let's be straight about what this free layer can and can't do. EOP handles volume filtering really well. Commodity spam, known malware, basic phishing, it blocks that stuff at scale. Microsoft's own SLA says it catches over 99% of spam with a false positive rate below 1 in 250,000. Those are solid numbers for everyday threats, but for targeted sophisticated attacks, EOP isn't enough. Here's where it falls short. No sandbox detonation. If an attachment is brand new and nobody has ever seen it, EOP can't open it in a safe environment to see what it does. It just delivers the message and hopes for the best. That's a big gap. No real-time link scanning. EOP checks URLs when the email arrives, but it doesn't check them again when you click. Attackers know this trick. They send a clean link, wait for it to pass inspection, then flip it to malicious after delivery. EOP won't catch that. No impersonation protection. EOP can detect spoofed domains like Microsoft.com instead of Microsoft.com, but it can't learn who your CEO is and flag emails pretending to be them. That's a completely different level of detection and no automated investigation or response. If a threat does get through, EOP can't hunt for it across your environment, find other affected users, or automatically clean things up. That requires Defender Plan 2. Now look at the real threat landscape right now. Recent research shows 50% of attacks can bypass endpoint-only defenses entirely. And phishing as a service kits are making sophisticated attacks cheap and accessible. For a few $100s, criminals can buy a complete phishing kit. Fake websites, email templates, even tech support. This isn't script kiddies anymore. It's organized crime with a subscription model. Here's a real example. Say an attacker sends a zero-day malware sample hidden inside a password-protected archive. EOP can't open that archive. It has no way to inspect the contents. The message gets delivered. But Defender for Office 365, it can detonate that file in an isolated sandbox, enter the password, and see exactly what the malware does. That's the difference. The real-world impact is serious. A business running only EOP is vulnerable to business email compromise. BEC attacks, where someone impersonates an executive and tricks an employee into wiring money or sharing sensitive data. These attacks don't use malware, they use psychology, and EOP has no defense against that. But here's the good news. EOP still stops the vast majority of commodity attacks. The drive-by phishing, the mass-market ransomware, the obvious spam, it all gets filtered before you ever see it. For the average small business, EOP is a solid foundation. It's just not the whole house. When you need Defender for Office 365. So when do you need to upgrade? Let's talk about Defender for Office 365 because this is where EOP's gaps get filled. Defender Plan 1 runs about $2 per user per month. It's included in Microsoft 365 Business Premium and E5 subscriptions. And as of August 2026, Microsoft is rolling it into E3 as well. So if you're on E3, check your licensing because you might already have it. What does Plan 1 add? 3 big things. Safe attachments. This is the sandbox detonation we talked about earlier. When an unknown file arrives, Defender opens it in an isolated environment and watches what it does. If it tries to encrypt files or phone home to a command server, Defender catches it and blocks delivery. EOP can't do that. Safe links. This scans every URL at the moment you click it, not just when the email arrives. If a link was clean at delivery but turns malicious 2 hours later, Safe Links catches it. It blocks the page before you ever see it. This closes the time gap that attackers love to exploit. Impersonation protection. Defender learns who your executives are, your CEO, your CFO, your HR director. It builds a relationship map of who they normally email. Then when a message arrives pretending to be one of them, Defender flags it, even if the sending domain passes all authentication checks. That's the difference between catching a spoofed domain and catching a targeted CEO fraud attempt. Now there's Defender Plan 2. That's about $5 per user per month included in E5. Plan 2 adds investigation and response capabilities. Threat Explorer gives you 30 days of detailed message telemetry. You can answer questions like, who else received this phishing email? And who clicked the link? In minutes instead of hours. An automated investigation and response, AIR, runs playbooks automatically when a user reports phishing. It finds all affected recipients, evaluates clicks, and queues remediation for approval. That can reduce dwell time from days to minutes. So how do you decide? Here's a practical guide. If you're a small business in a low-risk industry with basic needs, EOP might be sufficient. But seriously, consider Defender Plan 1 anyway. The cost is tiny compared to what a single breach costs. If your business has executives who are visible targets, and let's be honest, most do, Defender Plan 1 is almost mandatory. Business email compromise attacks target the people with authority to move money or approve payments. EOP alone won't stop them. If you have regulatory requirements or handle high volumes of sensitive email, consider Plan 2. The automation and hunting capabilities make a real difference when you need to prove compliance and respond quickly. Here's a real example. A 50-person company fell for a fake invoice last year, an email that looked exactly like their vendor's standard billing format. The finance team paid it. $20,000 gone. Defender's impersonation protection would have caught that email because it recognized the vendor domain was slightly off. EOP alone didn't flag it. And here's the thing. The cost of a breach, lost data, ransomware payouts, reputation damage, customer trust, dwarfs the per-user cost of Defender by orders of magnitude. $2 per user per month is less than a cup of coffee. A single ransomware attack can cost hundreds of thousands. How it all fits together. So here's how these pieces actually connect. That's where the real understanding comes from. EOP is the base layer. It's always on, handles the bulk filtering, and stops about 99% of the noise before it ever reaches you. That's the foundation. Defender Plan 1 adds the smart layer on top. Real-time link scanning, sandbox analysis for attachments, impersonation detection. This is where those targeted attacks get caught. Defender Plan 2 sits above that with investigation and automation, threat hunting, automated response, campaign correlation. This takes you from reactive cleanup to proactive defense. Together, they form Microsoft's email security stack. And here's the important point. They're not three separate tools. It's one system with three tiers. You buy what you need, and the integration is already built in. Remember the office building analogy. EOP is the front gate security guard checking IDs. Defender Plan 1 is the security cameras and badge readers inside, watching what people do after they get through the door. Defender Plan 2 is the security operations center, monitoring everything, connecting signals, and dispatching response. Integration matters because the pieces talk to each other. When a user reports a phishing email, Defender automatically connects that report with other signals across the stack. It checks if the same sender targeted other users. It looks for similar patterns in email traffic. It connects dots that a human analyst would take hours to find. And Zap works across all layers. Whether a verdict comes from EOP's signature database or Defender's sandbox analysis, if the determination changes after delivery, Zap removes that message retroactively. It's the common safety net underneath everything. Here's the real knowledge nugget. Email security isn't a single product you buy and forget about. It's layers that build on each other. Buy what you need but understand the gaps, because the gaps are exactly where attackers are looking. So what should you do now? Start with something free. Check that your domain has a DMARC record published in DNS. That alone improves EOP's effectiveness against spoofing attacks. Second, if your organization deals with sensitive data or has visible executives, trial Defender Plan 1. The cost is small and the protection is significant. And remember, no tool catches everything. Train your users to spot phishing. They're the last line of defense. Hit subscribe for more plain English breakdowns of Microsoft security and drop a comment if this helped. I read everyone.